Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and today we're going to talk about market segmentation and product placement, um, or product positioning. We want to focus on these two things at this point in the class because last week you created a new product, or you came up with the idea for a new product, and most people think that once you have the idea for the product, you build a website, you put the website up, then customers just start rolling in. And that's actually not the case, right? That's the entire reason for this class is because we need to get the word out, right? Now, before we can get the word out, we need to figure out who to get the word out to. So these two things are going to help us figure out how we can target a specific audience member, target a specific customer, and bring them into our family, right? So let's talk about market segmentation first. So market segmentation is essentially the process of dividing the market into distinct subsets of customers that can behave in the same way or have similar needs or whatnot. Now, I can already tell some people might be thinking, well, that's discriminatory, right? It's prejudice to think that just because someone belongs to a specific group means they're going to think exactly the same way as, our assumptions. And you're absolutely right. Right? That would be discriminatory. Market segmentation is not that. What market segmentation does is it doesn't focus on the individual. It focuses on the groups themselves. And there are specific things that we can determine by a group or about a group about how generally they will feel or react or think about a specific thing based on things like how old they are, what part of the country do they live in, what gender they are, their ethnicity, things like that. So market segmentation again focuses on the group itself and information that we can gather through data, looking at surveys of groups and how they feel on average and how they think on average about specific marketing plans and ideas. Um, so again, it's not focused on the individual. Don't think that we're prejudging people. We're just using social scientific data to help sell our products properly or more effectively. So here's some ways you can segment the market. Um, you can do it by looking at demographics, such as age, gender, ethnicity, things like that. We can also use psychographics, which is a really interesting conversation we're going to have in a couple of minutes. Geographics, where do you live? Where do you come from? And behavioral trends within certain groups. That's another way we can look at segmenting the market. So let's talk about demographics first. So demographics is essentially the personal characteristics such as your age, gender, income, ethnic background, education, religion, occupation, lifestyle, sexual orientation, all that stuff. All of that uh, indicates who you are essentially. If you think about it like this, right? You as an individual are a certain age, you are a specific gender, certain gender, you have a certain level of income, you are from a certain ethnic background, you have a level of education, you have a religious background, whether it's actually a religious background or lack of religious background, you still have a religious demographic. Occupation, lifestyle, sexual orientation, all these things kind of make up who you are on paper, right? But those are all groups that you can belong to. Everyone else with that same age or that same ethnic background belong to a group. And what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what groups we want to focus on with our marketing strategies. Let's talk about age because this is the most important demographic to pay attention to with marketing. Um, Everyone falls into some of these groups. Obviously, some people are older than baby boomers, but we don't really tend to market to them very much. But these are the four main groups that we will target when we start marketing to specific groups. You're either going to market to one or two of these, but you're probably not going to want to try to market to too many of them at one time. One common mistake I see students make a lot um, is when I ask them, "Who is your audience? How old are they?" You say, or who is your audience? You say everyone. Well, that's not an effective marketing strategy. You can't market to everyone all the time. You have to focus on specific demographics in order for your strategy to be effective. Let's talk about these individual groups here. So baby boomers. Baby boomers were born between roughly 1940 and 1965-ish. They're right at retirement age. There are about 76 million Americans in this group. Uh, you know, just a little less than a third of the, well, yeah, a little less than a quarter of the Americans in the United States fall into this group, and that's a growing demographic. Because as we learn more about medicine and technology, we're keeping people alive longer. So we're going to have a bigger aging population as the years go on. More of our old people are staying alive for longer. Um, but this group has a lot of money, right? They control $2.6 trillion of the national wealth, about 51%. They control a majority of the wealth of this country. Um, and they're willing to spend it, right? These people have saved their money for years. They've been working their butts off for years. They finally reach retirement age, and now they want to spend that money they've been saving and do something interesting or fun, with the remaining, 20, 30 years of their life. And so when we're targeting products toward baby boomers, we want to focus on the luxury aspect of it. How is this going to make you feel? How is this going to increase your status? We also want to focus on recreational things like vacations or trips or things that make your life easier to an aging population. Um, there are certain companies that only focus on marketing to baby boomers. And you'll see it if you watch daytime TV or cable news. You will see marketing efforts to baby boomers uh, everywhere. Generation X. Generation X is my parents' generation. They're roughly born between 1965 and 1980. 1982, 83, can even get up to that point. This includes about 40 million Americans. These people have been working their entire lives. They are, they're getting up there in age, but retirement's in another 15 years or so, 20, 15 years, but they're still grinding it out, trying to make as much money as possible. Their kids are grown or teenagers. Their kids are more expensive. They're putting kids through college, things like that. Usually, this generation has a dual career household, meaning both parents are working, or they're broken home, divorced parents, kids living in other, back and forth. The amount of divorce in this generation skyrocketed. So this is the most divorced generation in history in this country. They tend to be more savvy and skeptical of the products they buy because, again, they're trying to save as much of their money as possible. They are better educated than their parents because there was an increase in education or in access to education during their childhood, and so they are better educated. They are more financially cautious and conservative. Um, so usually marketers focus on really trying to grab their attention using a sense of humor, music that's nostalgic from their childhood, sharp images, things like that to try to bring in Generation Xers to buy their products. Generation Y, millennials, these are my people, right? People born between 1980, roughly 1980, 1983, 1984, and 2000. I was born in 1985, so I'm on the upper end of the millennial group. This is a common misconception. If you were born after the year 2000, you are not a millennial. Um, Most of you are not millennials. Well, actually, none of you are millennials. If you're one of my high school students, you're not a millennial. Okay, you're in the next generation. So anytime anyone calls you a millennial, correct them and be snotty about it because they're wrong. I am a millennial. Millennials make up 71 million in the population. For millennials, the experience is everything, right? I don't care about the quality. Well, I do. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I don't care if I like you. I don't care if you've given me a good product. If I have a bad experience with you, especially in customer service, I'll usually drop my brand loyalty and move to something else. To us, it's all about the experience. We tend to be focused more on social ideas. We include our friends into our family group. We open up the in group as much as possible. We celebrate diversity in the millennial culture. Um, we prefer groups over one-on-one interactions with individuals. We like to be nurtured. We are used to being nurtured, and we like to nurture others. We like companies that do responsible things with their profits, or at least pretend to, right? We don't actually care if they do anything responsible with it. We just like for them to pretend like they're doing something worthwhile. They're helping, underprivileged, whatever, yada, yada, yada. We also have high expectations for the products we use. We're very, very easy to drop a product if it ticks one box that we don't like. Think about what happened with, the Chick-fil-A controversy. A couple years ago, it was made known that the owners of Chick-fil-A, the previous owner of Chick-fil-A, was homophobic, and he didn't support gay marriage. Because of that, millions of millennials stop using that product, stop going to Chick-fil-A, right? We are quick to drop you if you do not celebrate diversity and hold our values. And that's kind of how millennials are. So to market to millennials, you want to be socially conscious. You want to your um, increase your focus on family and nurturing and doing the right thing, right? That's kind of what millennials pay attention to. Let's talk about Generation Z. That's you guys, right? Generation Z are the teenagers today, the teenagers of today. You guys are more focused on rewriting the rules. You want to upturn all the old traditions and create new ones. You want to create a new world where all the rules have changed. You guys are extremely tech savvy. You grew up with technology. You are more connected with education and workforce issues. You're becoming more political. You focus more on policy and how things are going to change, because again, you're focused on rewriting the world in your own image. Um, you tend to be good multitaskers. You need to be stimulated consistently in school or in the job environment. And the reason why is because your attention span tends to be a little bit less than those of your parents or your grandparents. And people may think that's a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? What that means is that you are more focused on using your time for things that you consider to be effective or worth your time, as opposed to wasting your time. So if something's not exciting you, if something's not getting your attention right away, you tend to move on from it. Um, with that, you also expect frequent rewards from the things you do, right? Marketing techniques for Generation Z that include many, many different smaller rewards are incredibly powerful. Think about this like I don't know if any of you are gamers, but if you're playing an Xbox One game and you get an achievement pops up on your screen, right? And there's a list of tasks for you to perform, and there are rewards for those tasks. That's something that hits Generation Z right in the sweet spot, and it activates you and it makes you pay attention to what's going on. And you guys work to live, not to work, or you work to live. You don't live to work, meaning you're more focused on having a quality, life affirming experience, and work allows you to get there because you get money from it and whatnot. You do not live your life in order to work. Your work just allows you to live the life you want. Let's talk about gender. Creating demographics or marketing to specific demographics such as gender can be a bit tricky, right? Sometimes if you overdo it, it backfires and people stop using your products. Sometimes if you don't do it enough, then you're not really developing an identity with a customer. Think about razors, like these examples I have here. On the left, that's obviously marketed to men. The complementary color schemes using the orange and blue to stand out. They're sleek lines. It's kind of metallic looking, and that's more marketed to a man. It looks kind of like a piece of hardware. Whereas the one on the right with the Venus breeze, it's soft and it's flowery and it's using more pastel colors, and it looks way more comfortable to use. It's squishy, and that kind of stuff that appeals more to women, whereas the one on the left appeals more to men. Now again, that's not always going to be the case, right? You're not going to be able to always be able to effectively market it just to men or just to women, but you need to think about those things when it comes to marketing your product. Psychographics. I love psychographics. It's so much fun to think about psychographics. Basically, this term means you're going to market based on social and psychological characteristics such as the attitudes, interests, and opinions of your customer base, right? So, things like their health, right? Is your customer the kind of customer that's focused on their health? If they are, there are certain things you can do to market to that customer. What about eating properly? Exercising? Do they take more vacations? Do they focus on vacations, other, experiences rather than having cool stuff? What about entertainment? Do they go to concerts, museums, the theater? Are they theme park people? Do they like sports? Do they use electronics? Are they gearheads? What do they do for fun? Geographics. So geographical differences um, can be huge depending on if you live in an area that has a lot of ethnic diversity, or if you live in an area that is much more heterogeneous. You want to be as you want to pay attention to where you're marketing. Now, with digital marketing, we're really going to be marketing to everyone all the time, everywhere. So geographics doesn't necessarily apply to us as much, but it is something to kind of think about. Um, yeah. Let's talk about behavioral segmentation. Um, Basically, this is us using statistics about customers based on their knowledge, attitudes, use, and response to a product, and then making marketing decisions based on that. So, where do people buy a product? Um, where do they use the product? Uh, what benefits do they like from a product as opposed to what benefits do they not care about? How much do they use the product? How much do they purchase that product over the or over your competition? Things like that. We can use that information to kind of guide how we market our products. Let's talk about product positioning. Now, product position is essentially just the practice of getting your products into the attention space of your customers properly, right? So there you always have competition in the position of your products. Not every product can be the top result in a Google search. Not every product can be the first advertisement in a magazine, right? So you need to compete with your competitors to have the best position for your products. So you have industry rivals to compete with. There are new entrants that are coming in every day to compete with. There are substitutions, so companies might, your competition might produce a substitute to one of your products that can undercut your marketing power. Um, you also have buyers have increased bargaining power now. So you want to make sure that you give them the best deal because they can bargain for the best deal. And then bargaining power of suppliers. If you rely on specific products to make your products, your competition may swoop in and make a better deal with your suppliers and cut you out. So, with industry rivals, sometimes you'll have price wars, advertising battles, new product introductions or modifications, increased customer service, basically changes to your company that will set you apart from your rivals or set your rivals apart from you. Think about cell phone companies. Think about all the advertisements you've seen for cell phone companies lately and the competition that goes on between the different cell phone companies, right? They're always talking about, we're the best in coverage nationwide or whatever, because they're trying to show that their product is better than their rivals. So the threat of new entrants, right? You're always going to have new people coming in or new companies coming into the industry. Usually when a new company comes into the industry, they're going to offer lower prices than you can, because they don't have as much overhead, and they're going to be able to profit way more than you can because again they don't have as much overhead. And so new companies bring in new customers. They even may grab customers from you and convert them. So your job as a marketer is not only to get new customers, but to hold on to those customers you do have. Threat of substitutes, obviously substitute products come in, and you need to figure out a way to convince your customers that your product that they've already been using and that they trust and they love, you need to convince them that your product is still the best, even if a cheaper substitute comes around. So, as more buyers increase, they have more power over the prices that are set for different products, right? Essentially, the customers are the ones who set the product. Think about it like this: if I open a fast food restaurant and I set my prices too high, it's $10 to buy a burger from my fast food restaurant, customers will choose not to use my restaurant and they'll go somewhere else. Even if I had the best burger of any of the restaurants, right? But because they can bargain for the prices they want, they'll vote with their dollar who they want to buy from, right? And so they kind of set prices. The market sets the price. Suppliers, again, they're kind of a customer in a way, right? They are a business, but they're also kind of a customer. They do control prices, because again, customers set the price, um, and they actually can they have their own costs to account for. So they're not just setting prices based on whims. They actually have a business to run, and they want to make a profit as well. And if they can sell their product at a higher price to another person who's going to buy in bigger volume than you can, then they're probably going to go with them instead of with you. So that is that's a very quick look. Now, a lot of the stuff we talked about in the product positioning here is just really just competing within the marketplace. Um, this is stuff that when you actually get into building a business, this is the kind of stuff you really need to pay attention to and think about. The market segmentation stuff is really what we're going to focus on this week. And this is really what you're going to use to complete your assignment for this week. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you absorb this information, think about it, think about how it applies to your product, and I'll let you get to work on your assignment. Thank you for paying attention. I will see you next time.